Good evening, I'm Shane Jones. Leading the news at 7. The Barbados economy contracted by 0.6% for the first 6 months of this year. But Central Bank Governor Cleviston Haynes says they're confident the planned implementation of a homegrown International Monetary Fund program will help to turn the country's fortunes around. Mr. Haynes made the comment as the bank revealed the half-year economic figures today. He explains this latest review has to be set in the context of the pending IMF program, the selective debt payment default, and the overall budgetary measures.
Tourist arrivals for the first half of the year increased by an estimated 3.4%, but the expansion was not sufficient to offset a weakening of length of stay on economic activity. Visitors from the North American region continued their fourth year of strong growth, with long-stay arrivals from the United States and Canada increasing by 8.9% and 3% respectively, while the number of United Kingdom tourists grew by 3.6%. Cruise visitors declined following a reduction in ship calls for the 6 months ending June 2018.
The governor says traded sector activity benefited from increased sugarcane production, which actually enabled a modest rise in sugar output. Meanwhile, Mr. Haynes also gave an update on the current level of foreign reserves.
The international reserves rose by over 33 million to reach 443 million during the first 6 months of the year. This was the first increase for the comparable period since 2008. The central bank received an increase in net purchases of foreign exchange from commercial banks, but the overall outturn partly reflected lower outflows on debt service, approximately 99 million in June, following government's decision to suspend external debt payments. The pool of reserves at 7.2 weeks of import cover remained below the 12-week adequacy benchmark.
Meanwhile, the governor also addressed the issue of government's decision to suspend debt service payments, which had essentially reduced borrowing requirements during the quarter. He also says discussions are ongoing with the island's creditors as efforts continue to finalize the agreement with the IMF.
Financing from foreign project flows was still insufficient to offset foreign amortization payments on multilateral borrowing, even though outflows were smaller than originally envisaged. Commercial banks provided 50 million in financing to government before the suspension of external payments. The central bank, which had scaled back its lending during the preceding year, provided $105 million in financing during the quarter. This increase was twofold. First, government reduced its deposits at the bank in part to cover deferred payments, including tax refunds. Secondly, the reduced funding provided by some non-banks created short-term financing pressures. The bank views this accommodation as necessary during this transitional phase and supports the amendment to limit future central bank financing of fiscal deficits.
Workers at the Immigration Department should be occupying their new office space at the Princess Alice Corporate Center this month. Cbc News understands the relocation will be conducted in phases. General Secretary of the National Union of Public Workers, Rosalind Smith, confirmed the passport section will be occupying the building first. It's expected the workers in that section will be moved from their Wharf Road location on or by the 15th of this month. The NUPW has repeatedly suggested the existing conditions at Wharf Road had caused several workers to fall ill. The scheduled move to the new offices was delayed a number of times. Members of one of the country's largest workers' unions will get a chance to engage Prime Minister Mia Motley on several key issues. That will be during the union's annual conference later this month. The disclosure from General Secretary of the Barbados Workers' Union, Tony Moore, during a media briefing earlier today.
We kick off on the Saturday morning on the 25th of August at 9 o'clock, and we have the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Motley, who will be addressing the conference, and we feel that this is a good opportunity for our conference to engage with the Prime Minister. We don't anticipate that it will be a session in which she only comes and brings pronouncements and that is it. In keeping with the way she's been operating, we anticipate that there will be some opportunity for interaction with our members.
Following a decision at last year's conference, a new executive council will be elected during this year's event to serve for 2 years instead of 1. However, Mrs. Moore says elections for the position of General Secretary will follow a slightly different process.
I don't see CEOs having a built-in system where each year or every 2 years the CEO changes, which brings me to some of the comments that we might hear from time to time from those who will call for the General Secretary to step down. The General Secretary serves at the pleasure of the union. So as it pleases our membership, who democratically elected me 4 years ago, and emphatically so, I must say, they would similarly determine if they need to remove me.
It's official. Veteran Calypsonian William Smokey Burke is out of tomorrow's courtesy Mount Gay Pickety Crop final. The confirmation from corporate communication specialist at the National Cultural Foundation, Simone Codrington. Burke, who hails from the Super Gladiators Calypso tent, reportedly complained of feeling unwell on Sunday and has been hospitalized since. His absence means the reserve and Burke's longtime friend Colin Spencer of Cape Shepherd All Stars will complete the lineup at tomorrow's final, which comes off at Kensington Oval. 9 competitors are doing battle against reigning monarch Iweb to be crowned Calypso King or Queen of Barbados. Well, as the country paid tribute to its freedom fighters on Emancipation Day yesterday, there was another call for the National Heroes list to be expanded. David Denny of the Caribbean Movement for Peace and Integration believes Danny Gregg, along with Israel Lovell, are worthy of the recognition.
I want to say to the Barbadian people and to the government of Barbados that we should recognize Danny Gregg as one of our national heroes. And as a woman, we should recognize Danny Gregg as one of our national heroes. I also want to say, because of that 1937 rebellion, okay, Israel Lovell played a major role in that struggle. And I also want to call on the government and the people of Barbados to make the Honorable Israel Lovell a national hero.
Meanwhile, Minister of the Environment Trevor Prescott encouraged Barbadians to embrace their African roots.
This is not an argument based on the logic of contempt. This is a reality. And it comes from you believing that you are inferior and everything that is African is inferior and that African people are barbaric people. You still believe it. They sold it to you during slavery. They sold it to you during colonialism, and it has continued under neo-colonialism.
The Durex condom rail feel Avanti beer lines here in Barbados are not affected by a recent recall. In a release today, local distributor Bryden Stokes Limited says no recall has been issued for the item Durex Rail Feel Avanti beer condom within the Caribbean. The recall is applicable only to shipments for batches shipped to specific other regions. Lisa Miles, brand manager for Durex Barbados, confirmed they've spoken with Lynn Kenny, quality control of Durex in the USA. She says following a full analysis of all the batches in the market, none of the batches shipped to the Caribbean is affected and all met full quality control specifications. Expect a bigger and better Rise show next year. That's a word from producer Kirk Brown following the conclusion of this year's event.
In its first year, Rise attracted an audience of over 10,000. And producer Kurt Brown is promising a bigger show next year.
We'll be back, bigger, better Rise 2019, bigger, more artists, bigger stage, everything will be different, fireworks. We really want to ring Emancipation Day with a bang, so we'll be working on all that for you.
Comedian Major Hype was just one of those who was in the lineup.
My experience was so nice. I enjoyed myself, I had a good time. My shoes is hurting me right now. I got a corn right here on the right foot, bunning. So I'm gonna take off this sneaker right now, but it was very nice. When your corn does bun you, that means you had a good time.
Local artists set the scene for the appearance of the 2 headliners, Machel Montano and Super Blue. Machel gave the crowd a solid 2-hour performance of his hits.
Let me ride.
energetic display from his group of dancers, which included Barbadian Nagi. He then teamed up with Super Blue for their hit, Soca Kingdom.
Big up the promoter, J Upscale. Big up our Mastermind Productions, everybody for making it. But most importantly, big up to the Bajan people for giving us the love and coming out and supporting us. Thank you, we appreciate you. Happy Emancipation, happy crop over.
Always a pleasure and honor to perform in Barbados. This is like sister or brother island, you know what I mean? And I have plenty of memories in the past from Barbados. Very sweet, loving memories.
And a good time was had by all.
It was worth my money. $90, yeah. I enjoyed myself. Although I feel it could have lasted a little longer, like 3:30 and they gotta go home already. But yeah, it was an enjoyable show.
I had a good time. Thanks to everybody who come out and make it possible. Bajans really like and enjoy this experience. It was a fiesta, and it's still a bit hyperventilated.
I had a good time. I had a good fetting family, so we had a ball.
Brianne Phillips, CBC News.
Security for the 4-day morning jam is at the top of the list for many revelers, and at least one band has introduced a novel measure to ensure the safety of its members before and after the jam. Adinkra band leader Ryan Leacock says his team has organized a secure parking location for members to assemble and return.
We offer a pre-party before a jump. You come in, you park your car, you have private parking. From then we leave Hospital, we go straight onto the route. Premium drinks, paint, powder, snacks, all the way. We get down to Spring Garden. We have a shuttle service back to Harrison College, where we serve Burger King breakfast along with some local delicacies. We have roast breadfruit and bull joe, palo. So you have a blast and a little music playing, and you eat and you relax yourself.
Plans are already underway for the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus to be home to the region's very first center for biosecurity studies. The revelation comes from principal of the Cave Hill campus, Professor Udine Barato. Speaking at a symposium for biosecurity, Professor Barato says formal approval for the center has already been granted. She explained biosecurity as procedures intended to protect humans and animals from disease or harmful biological agents, while adding that the university has a major role to play in combating the region's biosecurity threats.
The Center for Biosecurity Studies will be an interdisciplinary center receiving expertise from a range of disciplines. It will integrate the fields of law, medical research, climate change, disaster management, international relations, and public health, among other fields. By paying attention to the implications of biosecurity threats to the Caribbean, the Cave Hill campus seeks to operationalize the UWI's mission, and I quote now, to advance learning, create knowledge, and foster innovation for the positive transformation of the Caribbean.
What the Sir Optimus Senior Citizens Village and Activity Center needs most is volunteers. That's according to the administrator, Judith Gittins. She was speaking at an open day and fundraiser in celebration of the 27th anniversary of the facility.
Volunteerism is not something that is easy or natural to most Barbadians. It is very big internationally, and we only really have 3 staff members and 2 volunteers right now who are consistent. So we're asking for folks who are retired, those with skills, who have an hour even, to come through and lend their time in whatever area. For example, we have some folks here who did PAN as youngsters, and they want to rekindle that. And so we're looking for people who could probably come in and give them a 6-week course on something along those lines. So anyone who's willing to come in and volunteer, we'd really be grateful.
Ms. Giddings says the activity center is a very important part of their efforts to help the seniors lead fulfilling lives in their twilight years.
We talk about aging actively here and aging abundantly, and so what we try to do here is encourage the seniors to come into the center every day. We have them 3 days a week and participate in all types of activities. You would have seen some line dancing this morning. We also have some programs in craft, and it's really important to keep their minds active, keep them healthy, they get companionship, and for those who are in wheelchairs, for example, we do a lot of board games, so we still engage in activities that do keep them extremely active.
There's concern tonight over the high level of absenteeism by employees of the psychiatric hospital. It's coming from a senior official in the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Our Sharika Griffith has that story.
The high level of absenteeism at the country's lone mental health facility has been described by Senior Health Promotion Officer Denise Carter-Taylor as unacceptable.
So far for 2018, the hospital has recorded an average of 483 absent days among all categories of staff due to sick leave.
However, David Leacock, director of the psychiatric hospital, which employs 441 people, says absenteeism has been a challenge for a number of years.
We have put a number of strategies in place through our PRDS system, which is a system that government employs, so as evaluating staff and trying to develop staff to become better employees. So with the last, let's say, 2 years or so, we have seen improvements in some of our staff's attendance. We do have some persons that have continued to experience challenges. We've met with them to try to find out what issues they are having and how we can in turn assist them in becoming better, a bit more punctual in coming to work.
In the interim, he explains how the hospital has been coping with low staff turnout.
We do see some effects as far as some of the areas that are short of staff in some circumstances. We do have to bring in staff sometimes who are not skilled to work to cover these areas. Obviously, there are some critical areas we cannot go short as far as staffing is concerned. As far as our nursing staff and our housekeeping and dairy staff, we have to make sure we have adequate staff in all 10 of those areas. So we do something, have to bring in temporary staff to cover those shortfalls.
Mr. Leacock was speaking to the media on the sidelines of the launch of a health and wellness program, the hospital's latest initiative aimed at improving the overall well-being of its workers. The program has been welcomed by the Ministry of Health.
Programs like the one being launched today can reduce these trends in the psychiatric hospital and impact the national trajectory. Failure to arrest these trends will realize an increase in healthcare costs and in the long run a reduction of the significant gains which we as a country have made in healthcare.
Research shows professionals in the field of mental health experience a disproportionately higher degree of stress when compared to their counterparts in other areas of healthcare. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Guyana's President David Granger wants Guyanese to prepare for the new petroleum economy. He has warned that if the country is not careful, it will lose the advantage God has given through the natural resource. During his Emancipation Day message, he stressed that the sector should not be allowed to fall into the hands of foreigners.
We must be able to produce scientifically qualified people who could own and control that resource. My brothers and sisters, no government could guarantee giving every citizen a job in the army or the police or the public service. We have to become business persons. We have to learn to take risks. We have to become entrepreneurs.
In the Bahamas, dozens of homes located in shanty towns in western New Providence have been spared from the government's August 10th deadline for demolition. We have a report from Eyewitness News.
Nearly 30 homes in All Saints Way and Bedrock will be spared when the government begins demolishing structures in the 11 unregulated communities in the capital in less than 2 weeks, according to Shantytown Committee Chairman Dion Folks. Folks said the government has decided not to bulldoze the structures as they are up to code and structurally sound. However, he admitted that no decision has been made on how these communities will be regulated.
We are getting advice from the Attorney General's office on the various options as to what we can do, what is possible from a legal standpoint of view, taking in consideration the building codes of the Ministry of Works. So we have not come to any firm decision with respect to those two communities, but they will not be in this exercise on the 10th of August.
League of Haitian Pastors President Jean-Paul Charles used the opportunity to make one last plea for the government to give persons currently living in shanty towns first preference when the illegal communities are turned into government subdivisions.
Officials in Guyana have been able to rescue close to 80 persons so far for the year from human trafficking. In this HGP-TV report, we hear of the efforts of the government to combat the scourge.
Minister of Social Protection Amna Ali is concerned about the high rate of trafficking in persons during the first half of this year. She told patrons at the ministry's first Freedom Fest last Saturday that 77 suspected victims were rescued during the period January 5 to July 3, 2018. In observance of World Trafficking in Persons Day 2018, Minister Ali said that the protection of human rights and dignity of all citizens of Guyana is an essential component of good governance.
Today, I want to unequivocally state that the Ministry of Social Protection stands with the victims. We stand with those who have been violated, abused, and victimized. And I confidently stand here today and say that you can count on this government to support you.
Minister Ali noted that 60 of the 77 victims were placed in protective care, while some were offered job and training opportunities and therapy.
The cycle of trafficking cannot be broken without protecting the rights of trafficked persons and introducing effective strategies to prevent trafficking. I am optimistic that the current implementation of the National Action Plan, our numerous sensitization sessions, among others, sends a clear message to all of our countrymen and women that human trafficking is unacceptable.
A peek at sports is next, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Do not wait until the imminent approach of a hurricane to insure your home and contents. Secure insurance coverage early this hurricane season. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season.